Durable General Power of Attorney. This document is a staple of all estate plan documents done in California. Um, most adults, most clients should consider having a durable power of attorney as well as an advanced healthcare directive as part of their estate plan, allowing that client to designate a legal representative in the event of the client's incapacitation. For example, due to dementia, Alzheimer's, an accident and they're paralyzed, or a stroke and they're paralyzed. It allows an adult to have a designated individual to legally run their life for them on the financial, administrative, legal side of things with the durable general power of attorney. When you come to this page, you first notice whether or not, well, it has a quick explanation at the top, and it gives you the option to get a detailed explanation of the durable power of attorney. Select yes or no. Either way, I think this is a required option. You have to select this. If you select either one of these options, then this part pops up and it shows what the additional options are and how we handle this durable power of attorney for couples, whether it's a married couple, a non-married couple, registered domestic partner couple, or any couple that is doing this trust together. We automatically designate each spouse as the other's power of attorney agent. Husband is automatically the agent for the wife. The wife is automatically the agent for the husband, unless the answer is no to the very first question here. Automatically designate each spouse as the other's primary POA agent. As you can see, it's automatically defaulted to yes. So generally 99% of my couples clients want the other couple, the other spouse, the other partner to be their primary. So leave that as is. In rare circumstances, if clients do not want each other, or one particular spouse does not want the other spouse to be their primary, then you would select no here, and then you can customize further. That's what this is about. Okay, but let's say at the time of doing this presentation, or as you are learning this section, you want a detailed explanation of the durable power of attorney. You get a nice, concise, detailed explanation of what the durable power of attorney is, how it works, reasons for having a durable power of attorney. I highly recommend you read this. And if you click here, you get an in-depth video tip explanation. Highly recommend that at least once or twice until you get the hang of this. This option allows you to see some examples of how the durable power of attorney is working for a client or works for a client. Okay, different examples you would read here. If you're done with those examples, move on to collecting the information from the client. In this particular part, we're going to leave the automatically designate each spouse as yes. The next question deals with, okay, well, what happens if one of the spouses passes away? Who's going to be the backup if a spouse is no longer around for the other spouse? For example, the wife passes away, the husband later becomes incapacitated. Now his wife is no longer around. Who's going to be the backup to the wife? And here the option is to select the same successor trustees that you selected earlier, or that the client selected earlier in this interview process, to be the durable power of attorney agents for both spouses. Okay, for both spouses. If that's the case, select yes, and it's pretty easy from here on out. You would select these other optional provisions, read these in detail, whether or not there are specific powers for an agent to conduct ongoing business, whether the agent has the right to make gifts, and whether or not the POA is effective immediately upon incapacity. Select next, and it confirms here that the agents for power of attorney for the husband and wife were using the same successor trustees as listed earlier in the living trust questionnaire for both spouses. And you're done with that section. Okay, but if we do not have a scenario where the successor trustees will be used as the POA agents. Selecting no, and we get into some more customization options. So if you select no, that these power of attorney agents for the spouses, the backups, okay, the successor after the husband and wife acting as each other's agent, are not going to be the same as the successor trustees. You select no, and then you have the option here to use the same successor POA agents for both spouses. So this means that you're not going to select the successor trustees. You're going to select other individuals that are not the successor trustees of the living trust to act as the backup power of attorney agents for both spouses. And you're going to be given the option to later on to enter the names and contact information of those individuals. But if they happen to be the same for both spouses, select yes. Will there be more than one agent? So let's say in this case you want the husband and wife to be the primary agent, and you're not going to use the successor trustees as the backup. You're going to use someone else, yes, and you're going to use two other people that are not the successor trustees. These two other people will be the backup agents for both spouses, and they'll be the same for both husband and wife. Select this, and if there's going to be two, it'll be one successor agent plus one alternate agent. If there will be three, one successor agent plus two alternate agents. Again, these are individuals that will act as the successor trustees after the husband and wife as the primaries, as you indicated here, but not the same as the successor trustees that were listed earlier. All right. And you have the option to select if the client wants any of those successor trustees in this particular agent section here. You have a total of 3 backups after the husband and wife, and whether or not they will be, or any combination of them will be co-agents. You select that, and then you can choose the combination of co-agents. The first name will be the successor. The other 2 will be backup co-agents working together. The first 2 will be successor co-agents working together. The third will be a backup to the 2 co-agents in case one of the co-agents is not around. Or all 3 in this case will be acting as co-agents working together. Again, as I mentioned in explaining co-successor trustees for the living trust, it's usually not a good idea to designate or have co-trustees, and the same concept applies here. Not a good idea to have co-agents for the power of attorney. If one is not around, then you're stuck. The client has no one to make a decision for them for their financial situation, or dealing with the IRS, or whatever that scenario might dictate, because both are required to act together. The co-agents are required to act together. And if one of them's not around, it doesn't want to work together, is refusing to act, there's going to be some issues. So usually primary, backup, and then an alternate backup in successive order, not working together, is the best way to go. But clients know their agents, they know their family, they know their kids. If they're going to name kids as the successor agents, they know them better than we do. And if they want to take that chance of naming co-agents in any of these combinations here, just let them know. That's your choice, but it's usually not a good idea. Okay. So I'll just give you an example here of how this would work. Let's say they're not going to be co-agents. It's just going to be one successor agent after the husband and wife as the initial agents, and then 2 backups. You click next, and this is where you get to enter those individuals' information, their names. All right. You get a successor agent, and again, this is for husband and wife using the same POA agents for both spouses. These individuals are going to be the backups for both spouses on both spouses' individual durable power of attorney documents. Successor, alternate successor, second alternate successor. Now, what if they decided just to go with one successor agent, one alternate agent? Then the appropriate fields will pop up. Only 2. Successor agent, the first backup after the initial husband and wife as each other's agents, and the backup. If they decided to go with co-agents, then this option then pops up. Select if all co-agents must sign, and that's an important designation there. That's something that you would ask the clients if you want both agents to sign. That's where the problems can really mount up if both are required to sign and one of them is not cooperating. So you've got same PO agents for both spouses, the first successor co-agent and the second successor co-agent. They're working together. This is not in successive order because they're co-agents working together. So this is a very flexible set of options built into your durable power of attorney form. Might be confusing at first, but hopefully this tutorial will help explain how all that would work. Now, if the agents are not going to be the same for both spouses, okay, so let's say you do have the initial husband and wife acting as each other's agent, and then the backups are not the successor trustees, they'll be other individuals, and these individuals are not going to be the same for both spouses. Each spouse is going to have their own set of power of attorney agents. You select no there, and let's say there's just going to be a total of 2 for each spouse, and they're not going to be the same for each spouse. That's why you selected no here. You're not going to be doing co-agents. Now you have each spouse's set of agents, successor and the backup, and the second backup, wife's successors and the second backup. Okay. If you want co-agents, the same thing happens. Husband's first set of co-agents, wife's first set of co-agents. All right. All that, and it's separated out from between husband and wife because you selected no here. Using same successor PO agents for both spouses? No, you're not. And it gets really potentially confusing when you select multiple agents and there's going to be co-agents. Then you have, let's say, for example, the first 2 will be successor co-agents. The third will be acting as the alternate successor agent if one of the 2 initial co-agents are not available. And again, this is where the spouses do not want to use the same individuals for each of their durable power of attorneys. They're going to be different individuals for each spouse's power of attorney. Now you have those options automatically configured here in terms of the fields for each spouse. First co-agent, second co-agent working together, and then a backup after both co-agents for the husband. And now the wife, first 2 co-agents working together, and then a backup if one of the co-agents is not around. Okay, it's a very flexible situation on how that would work. And finally, let's deselect all these options here so we can show you what it looks like when you don't want the husband and wife to act as each other's primary agent, which is very rare, extremely rare, but I've had situations where that's the case. For example, it's an elderly client. One of the spouses is starting to get forgetful and is already physically incapacitated, not mentally incapacitated, but is starting to get forgetful. And the other healthier spouse does not want their spouse to be the primary agent. They want a child to be the primary agent, bypassing the living husband who is physically not able to move around and is starting to forget things. So that's where you would go no. And they have the option to use the same successor trustees that they listed in the living trust earlier to be the primary and successor agents for each spouse. If that's the case, the same people that they designated as their successor trustees of the trust, select yes, and you're done. Agents for power of attorney are using the same successor trustees as earlier listed in the living trust for both spouses. And then you move on to the Advanced Healthcare Directive. Where it can get a little bit tricky is if the answer is no, We're not using the same successor trustees for the primary and backup agent, primary and successor agents for the spouses, but the individuals that they are going to use, again, that are not the husband and wife as the initial and not the successor trustees as listed earlier in the living trust section, but these individuals that they will be selecting in a second are the same for both spouses, you select yes. And if there's going to be more than just one primary agent, select here, primary plus one successor agent. No co-agents, you go next. Then you have the options here to use the same POA agents for both spouses listed here, primary and a backup. And again, this is taking the place of the husband and the wife as the primary, as the initial. Okay, this is bypassing the husband and the wife. And if it's not going to be the same for both spouses, you select no there. More than one primary agent. And this option basically just separates the husband's options on his power of attorney from the wife's options on the power of attorney. Husband's section, primary, his primary and successor, wife's primary and successor. Okay. And then you go to the Advanced Healthcare Directive. So hopefully that's a pretty good explanation of how this form works, or this section works for durable power of attorney agents for the clients. You read all the instructions, you're going to understand how this works. If you read all these informational menu tips here, or the more detailed explanation along with this particular section here is very important to understand how we use this information collected by you and how initially this is the default where husband and wife are acting as each other's primary POA agent. Okay, then you'll understand the rest of this, but you may have to look at these videos a couple of times before you fully understand how the section works and how to apply the concepts of what a durable power of attorney is and how they are used in an estate plan for clients, and applying those concepts to filling out the form while you're sitting in front of the client and asking the appropriate questions to these clients. Okay, we'll move on to the next section.